I want to start today with a very specific image. I want you to picture a couple, maybe in the Philly suburbs.
Okay.
Let's say they're in a 4-bedroom colonial in Chester County, or one of those beautiful stone homes in DelCo. They bought it back in the late 90s, maybe 98,
Oh, yeah.
and they probably paid, what, $250,000?
If that, I mean, depending on the township, it could have been closer to 200. It was just a different world back then.
Right. And today, they wake up, they look at the market, and that same house, the one with the creaky third step and the dated wallpaper, it's suddenly worth $6, $7, maybe $800,000.
Mm-hmm.
They are, quite literally, accidental millionaires. They're sitting on a gold mine. But here's the paradox we're unpacking today.
They're stuck.
They are completely and totally paralyzed.
It is the classic golden handcuff scenario of, like, the 2026 real estate market. On paper, these homeowners are in the best financial shape of their lives.
They won the lottery.
They absolutely won the real estate lottery. But in reality, the thought of actually unlocking that equity feels impossible. And that paralysis is exactly what we're digging into. We're looking at the complex, the emotional, and frankly, the really tricky financial reality of downsizing right here.
In the tri-state area, we're talking Chester County, DelCo, Northern Delaware.
Exactly.
And we're not just, spitballing here. To navigate this, we're pulling insights from a pretty comprehensive source, the Essential Guide to Downsizing Your Tri-State Home. And we're also layering in current 2026 market data, plus some specific strategies from the SIR team over at Real of Pennsylvania.
And the mission here, really, is to shift the whole framework. Because if you ask most people in this situation about downsizing, the word itself just sounds negative.
It sounds like less.
Exactly. You're losing space, you're losing the family hub. But the whole point of this guide and our deep dive is to try and shift that thinking from losing space to, gaining freedom.
Gaining freedom sounds like a great bumper sticker. But the logistics of getting there feel like a nightmare. And I want to start right there, with the biggest point of friction. It's not the interest rates. It's not even inventory.
No.
It's the psychology. Why is it so hard to leave a house you don't even fully use anymore?
Because for this generation of homeowner, the house isn't just an asset. It's like an exoskeleton. The source material makes this really sharp distinction. For a first-time buyer, a house is a stepping stone.
Sure, it's one on the ladder.
Right. But for someone who's been in a place for 30 years, the house is their identity.
That's a heavy image, but it really tracks. I mean, if you raised your kids in those bedrooms and you planted that tree in the front yard 30 years ago, leaving isn't just a transaction. It feels like an erasure.
Exactly. You feel like you're erasing a chapter of your life. And that emotional weight, it just causes this massive procrastination. But then there's also the very, very physical part of the paralysis. The guide calls it the physics of accumulation.
Which is a very polite way of saying the stuff.
The stuff, the attic, the basement, the garage, the back of that one closet you never open.
Oh, I feel this. You open the attic door and it's like an archaeological dig of your own life.
It is. Just think about the sheer math of it. 30 years of accumulation, Christmas decorations for a house twice the size of where you're going, old tax returns from 1995, furniture that, might be useful someday.
Right.
The guide points out this is where the decision fatigue really kicks in. It's not a simple choice of keep or toss. It's a massive, complex decision tree for thousands of items. Do I keep this? Do I donate it? Do I try to sell it? Or do I offer it to the kids?
And that last one, give it to the kids. That's where the source material points to a really painful friction point. They call it the generational clash. And this seems to be happening everywhere.
It is a huge source of, silent guilt. You have parents who've been acting as archivists. They've saved the heavy mahogany dining set, the fine china, all of it, specifically thinking, I'm saving this for my daughter.
She's going to love this. You see it as a gift.
A precious gift. And then the daughter shows up, looks at the huge mahogany table, and just says,
Cool, thanks.
Or worse, I don't have room and it's not my style. And that hurts. But the guide is clear. This isn't personal rejection. It's a lifestyle shift. The next generation lives differently.
No formal dining rooms.
Exactly. They move more for jobs. They buy furniture from Wayfair because it's light, it's modern, and, it's disposable. They do not want brown furniture that weighs 400 pounds.
So the downsizers left with this physical manifestation of rejection. They feel guilty throwing it away because their parents gave it to them, but their own kids don't want it. That is a brutal emotional cocktail.
Precisely. So you have grief about the house, rejection about the stuff, and a massive physical project all at once. That's why the timeline strategy in the guide is so critical. They suggest a 6 to 12-month buffer.
That seems really long. I think most people think, I'll list in the spring, so I'll start cleaning in March.
And that is a recipe for a nervous breakdown. You cannot wake up in March and list in April if you haven't touched the attic in 10 years. You need that full year, not just to clean, but to actually process the emotions.
You need time to cry over the kindergarten art projects before you recycle them.
You really do. If you rush the emotional part, you will make bad financial decisions later because you're stressed out and you're desperate.
Okay, so let's say we've done the therapy, we've cried over the china, we're ready to move, now we hit the math. And this is where I think people have a false sense of security. They think, I sell for $800K, I buy for $500K, I put $300K in the bank.
Right. Easy game.
Easy game.
If only. The financial equation has some serious gotchas, especially in our little tri-state tax landscape.
Okay, let's break down the equity part first, because that is the good news.
It is. Longtime owners in places like, say, Malvern or Newtown Square, they're incredibly equity rich. The mortgage is likely paid off, so they have a superpower in this market. Cash.
Which is huge when mortgage rates are hovering around 6 or 7%.
Yeah. It's a massive advantage. They can often buy their next home outright, makes their offer stronger, keeps their monthly costs low, but generating that cash wakes up the tax man.
Capital gains.
Right. A lot of people forget the rules because they haven't sold a house in 30 years. The IRS lets you exclude a certain amount of profit from taxes. If you're single, it's the first $250,000 of profit.
And married, it's $500,000.
Correct. But let's do the math on our accidental millionaires. They bought for $200,000. They sell for $800,000. That's $600,000 in profit.
So even if they're married, they are $100,000 over that limit.
Exactly. They're going to owe capital gains tax on that extra $100,000. And if they're single, say, a widow or widower, the bill is much, much higher. You have to plan for that hit. It's not all fun money.
And that's just the federal side. The local property tax situation around here has changed. I saw a note in the source about a Delaware County tax hike that looked aggressive.
It's a shock to the system. In late 2025, Delaware County approved a massive property tax increase. We're talking around 23% in some areas.
23%. That's a budget buster for someone on a fixed income?
It completely destroys the monthly budget. If your retirement is built on paying, say, $8,000 a year in taxes, and suddenly it's $10,000 or $11,000, that money has to come from somewhere. This is actually driving a phenomenon the guide calls location arbitrage.
I love that term, location arbitrage. It sounds like a hedge fund strategy. What does it mean for a retiree?
It means moving strategically to take advantage of different local tax codes. For some, it's just moving between townships in Chester County. But for a lot of people, it means crossing the state line into Northern Delaware.
Places like Hawkinson, Wilmington, Newark.
Exactly. You moved 10 miles south. You're still 20 minutes from your grandkids in Kennett Square. But now you're in Delaware, where property taxes are way lower and there's no sales tax.
So you stay in the same ecosystem, you just change the jurisdiction.
Right. It's a very popular move. However, before everyone packs up for Delaware, we have to talk about the monthly nut.
The monthly nut. This has to be the HOA fee.
That's the one. If you're coming from a single-family home where you mowed your own lawn, you probably had zero HOA fees. But you move to a 55-plus lifestyle community, and you're suddenly looking at fees from $300 to, like, $800 a month.
Wow. That's a significant line item.
It is. You might save $4,000 a year on property taxes by moving, but if your HOA is $600 a month, that's over $7,000 a year, you might actually be increasing your fixed costs.
That is a crucial calculation. You're paying for the lifestyle, the pool, the snow removal, but you have to make sure the arbitrage actually works, the net-net calculation.
Exactly. Don't just look at the list price. You have to look at the carrying costs.
Okay, let's pivot to logistics. This is the part that I think keeps people up at night. The classic chicken or the egg problem.
Oh, this is hands down the most stressful question in the guide. Do you sell your current house first, or do you buy the new one first?
I can argue both sides. I mean, if you sell first, you have the cash, you know your budget, you can sleep at night knowing the money is in the bank.
Correct. Selling first gives you cash certainty. You're a very strong buyer. Sellers love that. But where do you live?
The homelessness anxiety.
It's so real. You sell your house, you have to get out. If you haven't found the new place yet, you're moving into a rental or an Airbnb or your in-laws' basement. You are moving twice.
Nobody wants to move twice.
Yeah.
So what about a rent back? The guide mentions this.
It's a great tool if you can get it. Basically, you sell your house, you get the money, but you negotiate a clause that lets you stay in the house as a renter for 30 or 60 days after you close.
So you get the cash and the roof over your head.
That's the ideal. But it requires a willing buyer. In a hot market, maybe they'll agree. But if the buyer needs to move in right away, that option is just off the table.
Okay, so then there's option B, buying first.
Buying first solves the homelessness problem completely. You find the perfect downsize, you move in at your own pace, then you clean up the old house and sell it. It is by far the most seamless lifestyle option.
But financially? That sounds heavy.
It's very heavy. You're carrying 2 properties, 2 insurance policies, 2 utility bills, and potentially 2 mortgages, unless you can buy the new place outright without the cash from the first one.
And getting a bridge loan to cover that gap is not cheap right now.
With rates where they are expensive. You are paying a huge premium for that convenience.
So what's the right answer, according to the experts like the SIR team?
Their whole view is that there is no universal right way. It's all about your personal risk tolerance. If you hate risk, you sell first. If you value convenience above all else and have the cash, you buy first. But the key takeaway is that you have to map this sequence out before you list. You can't just wing it.
Planning, planning, planning. Okay, so where is everyone going? We mentioned Delaware, but if I'm leaving my big house in Exton, where do I actually land?
The source identifies 3 main paths for downsizers around here, and they really depend on what kind of life you want to live next.
Okay, let's walk through them. Path 1?
Path 1 is the urban walkable route. This is for the person who wants action. They're tired of the quiet cul-de-sac. They're looking at Westchester Borough or Phoenixville.
Oh, yeah. Phoenixville has completely changed. It's all breweries and restaurants now.
Exactly. These buyers trade the big yard for a condo right near Bridge Street or Bay Street. They want to walk to get a coffee. They want culture. They are trading lawn maintenance for lifestyle.
I get the appeal. What's path 2?
Path 2 is the maintenance-free resort route. These are the big 55-plus communities. In Chester County, you've got places like Hershey's Mill or Big Elk Creek. In DelCo, you see people looking at traditions at Ridley Creek.
These are the places with the pickleball courts and the social calendars.
Yes, it's like living in a permanent resort. But, and this is important, the source notes that inventory here is incredibly tight. People move into these places and they do not leave. You have to be ready to pounce.
And the third path?
The stay local route. This is for the person who says, I don't need a clubhouse, I don't need a walkable town, I just want to stay near my family.
And they're doctors.
And they're doctors. They're looking for townhomes in Downingtown, Exton, Newtown Square. They want single-floor living. A master on the main is the absolute must-have, but they want to stay in their familiar radius.
So when you look at all of this, the emotions, the taxes, the logistics, it becomes pretty clear that your standard stick-a-sign-in-the-yard agent might not be equipped for this.
You are hitting on such a key point. The source material spends a lot of time on something called the SRES designation.
Seniors Real Estate Specialist. Is that just a fancy acronym or does it actually mean something?
It really matters. Think about the standard real estate model. It's built on speed. List fast, sell fast. It's a hustle. But downsizing needs the exact opposite. It needs patience. And SRES is trained in things that other agents just aren't, like reverse mortgages, estate tax, and honestly, the emotional pace of seniors.
It's the anti-hustle.
It is. The source uses the SIR team Vincent and Jane as a case study. They've done this for over 16 years, 400-plus transactions. But what makes them different isn't their sales volume, it's their methodology. They act more like project managers than salespeople.
That project management piece seems huge. The guide said they coordinate cleanouts.
Yes. This goes right back to the physics of accumulation. Most homeowners physically can't do it themselves. The SIR team brings in the movers, the donation trucks, the estate sale companies, the dumpsters.
So the homeowner doesn't have to be the general contractor of their own move.
Right. There's this great quote from a client, Gary W. from Broomall, who said he was just so relieved he didn't even have to go to settlement. Or another client, Bill C., who talked about the stress reduction. If you're 75, you don't want to be haggling with a junk removal guy. You want someone to handle it.
Speaking of junk and fixing things up, there's this fear that if you haven't renovated since 1998, you have to redo the whole house to sell it.
The HGTV effect. People think they have to knock down walls and put in white marble just to sell a house.
Right. And the guide basically says, don't do that.
The guide says, stop. The strategy is called good bones.
Good bones. Explain that.
It just means you don't need perfection. In fact, perfection can be a total waste of money. Buyers in this market, especially younger ones, they want to make their own changes. They don't want you to pick the backsplash because they're just going to rip it out anyway.
So I shouldn't bother replacing the carpet in the basement.
Probably not. The advice is to focus only on high-impact areas, the kitchen and the primary bedroom. And even then, think cosmetic, paint, new lighting, maybe some cabinet hardware. Don't start adding bathrooms or moving plumbing. You will not get that money back.
That has to be such a relief for people to hear. You don't have to become a house flipper just to sell your own home.
No, but, and this is a big but, you do need to declutter. That is non-negotiable.
Yeah.
A dated house that's clean, empty, and smells fresh will sell. A dated house filled with 30 years of stuff will not.
It lets the buyer imagine their own life there.
Exactly. If they can't see the floor, they can't see themselves living there.
So if we zoom out and look at the whole picture, it really all just comes down to preparation.
It does. I mean, if you take one thing away from this deep dive, it's the timeline. Start 12 months out. Do not wait until you're ready to list to start cleaning the attic. Do the math on the taxes and the HOA fees now so you aren't blindsided later.
And there was a really poignant point in the conclusion about the why. Why do this at all?
Yes. It's maybe the most powerful advice in the whole source. It is infinitely better to downsize while you are healthy and you have choices, rather than waiting until a health crisis forces the decision on you.
That really hits home. When you're healthy, you're in the driver's seat. You pick the town, you pick the timeline, you pick what to keep.
Exactly. When it's an emergency, a fall, a stroke, you lose all that leverage. You lose your negotiating power, your time, and your emotional bandwidth. Doing it proactively is an act of taking control.
It's about agency. So as we wrap up, I just want to leave our listener with a question. We've talked about all the equity, the money, the logistics, but maybe you should ask yourself this. Are you holding on to the house for the memories? Or are you letting the house hold you back from making new ones?
That is the question. The equity is just sitting there, locked in the drywall. How do you want to spend it? On heating a 4-bedroom house you don't use, or on a lifestyle that actually gives you freedom?
Something to think about next time you walk past that empty